behalf of the Miami Beach United Board, we thank you for your presence. I would like to also thank the venue. The Women's Club is a venue that is available for parties, weddings, bar mitzvah, anything you need, they can do it. Look at us here. Anything you need. And also, special thanks to Giorgio from Santorini by Giorgio. Wonderful meal and the beverages as well. So, and also, so you know, Giorgio is now catering. So if you have any particular party, he can take his delicious food to your party as well. And without further ado, I would like to, before that, I'm so sorry, I need to embarrass a couple of people. Scott Needleman. Oh, can you wave a little bit harder? Okay, Scott, everybody can look at him, please. And Troy. Can you, it's their birthday. Can you guys say happy birthday? They are both members of the community. They do a lot for this community, especially South Beach. Thank you very much to both of you for what you do. And I would like to introduce you to our MBU, one of our founders, Saul Gross, that also has done a lot for our city. So with that, we can start.
Okay, thank you everybody for coming. Really appreciate the turnout. It's an interesting subject for us to discuss. As she said, my name is Saul Gross, and I was one of the founders of Miami Beach United back in 2012. And with the support of a lot of residents over the years and a hardcore group, we've been able to continue to offer programming like this. On topics that are of interest to the community, and sometimes it's presentation of information. Today it's a little bit different because it's going to be more of a panel discussion to try and figure out some solutions to challenges that we're facing as a community. Just a little background of me. I was a former Miami Beach commissioner a long time ago. From 2001 to 2009, but my background was in renovating apartment buildings in the Flamingo Park neighborhood in the 80s and retail on Washington Avenue in the 90s. And, served on various city boards and have been involved in the community quite heavily. Let me just introduce a few dignitaries who are in the room, and then I'll introduce the panel. And then we'll get started. Former Mayor Maddie Bauer is here. Who I served with on the dais for many years, and Maddie is terrific and one of the funniest people I know. Mayor Steve Miner is here. His trademark sneakers and running around with the police and making sure that we're all safe and sound. Thank you, Steve. Laura Dominguez is here, Commissioner Laura Dominguez. And Commissioner Alex Fernandez is not here, but expressed his regrets. He's representing the city of Miami Beach at a League of Cities meeting. Okay. And also, our president of MBU, Claire McCord, unfortunately could not be here because she has an eye problem, and so she sends her regrets, but she's responsible for setting everything up that's making it easy for us to deal with. So thank you again for coming. Let me introduce the panel who is going to be discussing the subject of how do we restore the luster to the Art Deco District. I think we called it South Beach, but I'm changing it to the Art Deco District now. And it's appropriate because this is the 100th year of the Art Deco Symposium in Paris in 1925. And I think, Jonathan, you have a celebration related to the centennial, or MDPL does, I think. There's celebrations. Okay, all right, perfect. So we'll get to you. In fact, I'll introduce you first, George. George Neary from the side is the current interim director of the Miami Design Preservation League. George got 8 years of retirement to be pressed into duty, and he's mediating between the MDPL groups, as only George can mediate. He previously was the executive director of MDPL for 7 years, from 1991 to 1998. And in between stints at MDPL, he was vice president of cultural tourism and LGBTQ marketing for 20 years at the Greater Miami and now Miami Beach Convention and Visitors Bureau. I didn't know they changed it and added in Miami Beach. When did they do that? Oh, okay. That's good. We have a very good relationship with the Bureau now, I guess. Anyway, George is a fixture as an MC at various community events. I know it's going to be hard to restrain himself from being a panelist, but I thank you for indulging us and being a panelist here today. Irene is somebody I did not know before I indulged on this, and everyone said to me, oh, you absolutely have to have Irene on the panel. She's the queen of Ocean Drive now, and nothing happens without running it through Irene. I don't know about that, but I do know, if you haven't read her newsletter yet, that she sends out monthly, you really have to read it. Her organization is called the Art Deco Neighborhood Association. It is definitely the most fact-filled, informational piece of information that goes out to beach residents, and I was shocked at all the things that I didn't know, and I'm pretty involved. So I think you're doing a great job. I think your background and finance and organization have skilled you well, and thank you for participating on the panel with us. Jonathan Plutzik, to my right, is the owner of the Betsy South Beach. I'm editorializing, he didn't write this, but I think the finest business-run establishment in the Art Deco District is run by Jonathan. I'm a little partial because I'm a jazz lover, and he actually has a jazz piano player that plays there like almost every night, different ones. If you haven't been there and you like jazz or music in general, you really should go and enjoy the ambiance at the Betsy Hotel, and the food is spectacular also. Jonathan, I did not know the things he wrote here, but I'm not surprised because he's a very impressive gentleman. Betsy is a Michelin key hotel, widely celebrated for its commitment to the community and to the arts. But Jonathan, he never says this, but he wrote it down here, is the former chairman of the board of Fannie Mae in Washington, D.C. I know, wow, right? And the retired vice chairman of Credit Suisse or Swiss? Suisse. Either one works, okay. And he serves as chairman of the Ocean Drive Association. He was appointed by both mayors Levine and Gelber to chair citizen committees exploring long-term plans for South Beach. So he spends a lot of his time doing things for the community, and he leads by example because he really does have one of the best establishments in our city, I would say. Thank you, Jonathan. Bernard Zyscovich. Bernard is going to have trouble speaking tonight because he's hoarse, more than hoarse. Yeah, more than hoarse. Thank goodness the microphone works well. Bernard is a family partner of Zyscovich, a nationally recognized urban design architecture and interior design firm headquartered in Miami. When I bought my first building in 1986, which is now a lot of years ago, Bernard was the architect that I hired at that time to redo the facade, which we got his credits from the historic tax credits and federal government, and also at that time the county was helping out. He was instrumental in helping all that. The project was very successful. He grew up in Miami Beach, unlike the rest of us. He's been the architect for many Miami Beach projects, including the Flamingo, the Lincoln Cinema, the Miami Beach Senior High School, and his planning work includes the Convention Center CRA, which doesn't really mean anything but to people that don't know the acronyms, but I think Bernard was really responsible for the idea of Soundscape Park being where it is. And that Soundscape Park is really something special in our city, which has been copied now by other performing arts districts, including in Washington, D.C. and throughout the country. And it really was trailblazing. He also was the architect of the Lincoln Cinema, and opening 16th Street to traffic, which enhanced the city grid. That was a project that I know Maddie was involved with, and probably George, when the Anchor Hotel was moved because it was in the way, and put in place on the corner of 16th and Washington, a tremendously successful project from, 25, 30 years ago, probably. 92. Yeah, 33 years ago. Unbelievable, we're old. Recently, he did a master plan for the Art Deco District, which hasn't received the attention that I believe it should have, and that's some of the things that we'll probably talk about tonight or this afternoon. Bernard also served as a chairman of NDPL in the early days. In fact, fun fact, didn't you hire George Neary when he was in his first stint as the chairman of NDPL? So we have a lot of years here in the community on the panel, and last but not least is David Martin, CEO of Miami-based Terra. He's cultivated a very large portfolio, $8 billion, including projects like 5 Park at 5th and Alton, which is a very beautiful looking building, very high, very beautiful.
Very high.
He is he's building the Miami Beach Convention Center Hotel along with Jackie Surfer. And I think they finally started. I see there's some steel going up, right? Good. And he got some money, extra money from the city and from the county, and the project is funded, and I think everybody's very excited that the Convention Center Hotel is going to be built, and I think it'll be a big boom for the Convention Center, I really do. And the community is to thank for approving this project. I think David's good at getting things approved on the second go-around. Not your second go-around, but somebody else tried to get the Convention Center Hotel approved first and didn't, and much like you just got approval so far for the Dover. So congratulations on that. His projects often integrate green space, renewable energy, resilient construction methods, and transit connectivity. If you know David, he's relentless in his pursuit of design, deals, and community engagement. He really gets engaged. And thank you for doing that. In this community, if you don't get engaged, I'm sure you've learned by now you can't get that much done. Okay, so I want to give notes already, huh? Commissioner Kristen Gonzalez just came in. So, okay, so here's what I want to frame the discussion that we're going to have, and I'm going to make a little bit of a long introduction, and then I'm going to open it up to the panel discussion. But let's say that over the last 20 years, the Art Deco District has lost market share to a lot of local neighborhoods that are newer than we are. And we're the older historic district, but you know the list: Wynwood, Brickell, Alapata, Little River, Miami River, the Design District. And even in Miami Beach itself, other neighborhoods south of 5th Street and Sunset Harbor have come of age and have been very successful. Some aspects of the Art Deco District remain successful, but a lot of locals consider the Art Deco District really to be more of a tourist venue. And I think as a result, the retail in that area suffers. It's been decimated on Collins Avenue. Washington Avenue, the quality of the retail has diminished significantly. And it's very difficult for businesses to survive just on tourism. And so our challenge, and Ocean Drive actually it has been a party scene for a long time, and that's fine if it's good partying and it's kept mostly indoors. But some of it has proliferated outside, and been things that we would rather not see outside. But all in all, Ocean Drive is actually the most Instagrammed street in the United States, I think Jonathan told me, right? So we must be still doing something right. Now, obviously, part of that has to do with the architecture and the iconography of the Art Deco architecture, which is what we're all celebrating. But, I think most of the people who are here out of love for the Art Deco District. We had a catchy title that said Restoring the Luster of South Beach. And we're here to figure out what ideas we have that can restore that luster to what it once was. Now, after all, the concentration of the Art Deco buildings is totally unique and attractive, and the 100th anniversary, as I mentioned before, of Art Deco in Paris is from 1925, is here this year. So we're going to try and explore three strategies today. One is pedestrianization of more of our streets, dedicating more areas to bike lanes, which we've started to do but hasn't been totally successful. Pedestrianization has been successful in so many places, in European capitals, New York City and Times Square, Lincoln Road. I mean, the best example, I think, in our city is Espanola Way in the first block between Washington Avenue and Drexel. I mean, it's amazing how packed the restaurants are there because that street is closed to traffic, and it just has a vibe and an atmosphere that you don't get in other places where there's traffic that's streaming by. So we're going to be talking about opportunities for pedestrianization, bicycling, and maybe a pilot project for pedestrianization in other areas that Bernard is going to talk about if we can hear him. And so, that pedestrianization scares some of our business owners because they feel that it might negatively impact their business, and so we recognize that, and we're here to make them part of the conversation as well, because one thing we know from trying to get things done in the city is that if you don't bring all the stakeholders together and have all their interests heard in a community conversation, nothing good will ever happen from it. And all the good things have happened that way, not shoved down anybody's throat, but really by process of consensus building. The second strategy that I wanted to talk about that's come up is building residential apartments on some of our commercial streets. It's been proposed over the years for Washington and for Collins. Mayor Gelber and Mayor Levine both had this concept for live, work, play. And so, that's come back into vogue again. In fact, the Miami Beach Commission and the Planning Board have approved a proposed ordinance on first reading, Planning Board on two readings, but the Commission on first reading, to allow for an increase in the density on Washington Avenue for residential from 2.0 to 4.0, and an increase in the height limit to 100 feet, and no parking. And so that's one of the things I want to discuss today is whether putting residential, at whatever size and scale, ends up getting approved in the historic district as a way of bringing more customers into the district is a good strategy or not, because it will change the character of the street. And the third effort that I want to focus on is branding and marketing and what those efforts are, and whether we're bringing the right people, attracting the right people to our city in that process. And Irene has a lot to say on that subject. So that's kind of the overview of what we're going to do. I want to start off, though, since we do have David, and since it is timely, based on what happened in the Florida legislature last week, which was the strengthening from the point of view of the state, but from the point of view of the city, a terrible decision to take power, to continue to take power away from cities and allow the construction of very large buildings, 700, it could be anything within 750 feet, I think, or 3/4 of a mile. I think they shortened it to 3/4. Two standards? Okay. So if you're within a mile of a tall building, you can build a building as tall as that is.
Within a mile.
And you're not subject to the city's FAR rules, and you don't have to go to the city land use boards to present your project, but you do have to go to the city administration, and you do have to comply with the comprehensive plan and concurrency. So I wanted David to talk a little bit about what you see is the likelihood that you or other developers are going to be building very tall buildings and destroying our district and changing the character. I don't mean you, because your projects are nice and in good taste and community worked out, but anybody can come in, any developer can, we don't have control of that. How likely is it that someone is going to come in and want to do that? And if they do, where do you think would they want to do that, on Ocean Drive, on Washington Avenue, or would it be more like on West Avenue where you built a very tall building that's beautiful but very tall? So I'd like you to comment.
So hi everyone, and thank you for having me here. And my name is David Martin. I've admired and started my career in Miami Beach 25 years ago in 2001. I met Bernard, and we worked on a building over, a 7-story building over at Dave Boulevard and Meridian. I also built the Nautica, 6-story building called the Nautica, right? And so I think what we have is we have a huge dilemma going on. The dilemma is that we don't have, that we have a problem with affordability. We have a problem with of people being able to afford to live in our community, stay in our community, continue to raise their families here. And the challenge is, and it's not a good way to go about it, is trying to zone something from another city is not appropriate, right? We need the community to be involved and engaged in whatever zoning process and whatever changes we're trying to do to incentivize whatever type of behavior we have. I really feel that capitalism can help solve society's issues, but when we're calibrating the zoning code, we really need to have the community engaged, right? And so the challenge with that is people don't want density, people don't want traffic, people don't want impact. And so it's a huge struggle that I think we all are going to have in order to see what is the right balance of density, right? What is the right balance of new construction? We have a built environment here, some amazing, beautiful historic districts and buildings that need to be restored, renovated, and activated. But at the same time, we have other areas that could be susceptible to a live local application. And what live local requires is basically whatever density you have to provide 40% of your density as affordable housing. And they define affordable housing by up to 120% of the average median income. Average median income is around $90,000, give or take, for the county. And so you basically have a rent cap for your 40% of your units. So the challenge with live local, and I think this is something that people are going to start to realize, is that any live local application has to conform to the setback and parking standards of the city. And those parking standards and those setback requirements are significant. And I would say a lot of properties, I'm not going to say all, but I would say the majority of properties that could potentially qualify for live local probably won't. because you cannot deliver a parking solution, right? And also a setback solution and fit your garage and parking for whatever uses you're trying to do. But it is a situation. Development's always been in my life has always been a challenging process, right? And how are we, when we think of where we've been, or 80 years ago, or 20 years ago, what are the things that we need to be investing in now in order to really look to the future, honoring the past, right? And for me, I do think that density is necessary. I'm sorry if some people don't agree, but I do think that we need more bodies, more residents staring at the sidewalks, making sure they're safe, calling code enforcement if things are not in line, supporting the businesses. I do think a little office as well. I think having a mixed-use environment is the right move at the right scale, and I think that the community and the neighborhood should be able to be able to contribute into that conversation. At the same time, we have to be careful, right? These legislations, sometimes certain policies, they don't change, right? We've had a history or a significant amount of time, especially post-COVID, but pre-COVID, where things like Washington Avenue, et cetera, they're just haven't taken off. And so I am a big proponent to work with our local community, local elected officials, local business community to plan for those neighborhoods in the right way, but to be able to trigger density, right? Because sometimes you create zoning that maybe doesn't really change behavior, and you could create more FAR, more height, and nothing happens. But that's not what we're trying to achieve. And I think Miami Beach has amazing design controls with its historic preservation board, its design review board. So the quality of the new construction, I think, much more than any other municipality will work on, is much more rigorous. But at the same time, I do think that Live Local is going to present a challenge for all of us. And it's something that we have to think through. Height is not the best thing, right? But sometimes it may work, right? If it provides provides a park for a community, it may work, right? If it has enough public benefits and mobility and connectivity, it could work, right? So at the end of the day, what we have to do is have these dialogues and try to embrace the business community, embrace the development community into the conversation. I think if we could get the community and the business community and government kind of talking like these discussions, I really think it's gonna yield a better result so that we solve Live Local by better community building. Thank you.
You mentioned master plan in your comments. We have the king of Miami Beach master plans here on my left, Bernard Zyscovich. We've been talking about Washington Avenue ordinance that's been proposed. And Bernard's first reaction was, well, where's the master plan? In other words, how does it fit in? You said office. I think office is good. I've heard a lot of people say, no, it's not good. Bernard, can you speak to master planning a little bit and what its impact might be on this in particular, but generally the subject matter of what we're talking about today?
Test. I don't know to what extent I can speak, so please forgive me. But
Somebody here to help.
I think Live Local is killing a mosquito with a shotgun. It applies in many places. We're working on projects in the city of Miami where we could come up to 40 stories, 50 stories. It's in the context that the city would be able to receive it. Problem is the same rules apply to Miami Beach. Thank you.
Yeah, if you do that, it's great.
Let's not dwell on Live Local, because I just wanted, since David was here, it just happened, that's fine, but I want to talk more about the Art Deco District generally, and the idea of master planning and how that fits into the Art Deco District overall, and not so much Live Local.
Okay. I will be brief because I have to. I believe that this city has gone through significant downturns. 1980, murder capital of the world. When the Art Deco District was created by Barbara Kaplan, it was a terrible place. It has gone up with fashion, it has come down. Art Basel was another moment when it came up. So my belief in master planning is the worst thing that a city can do is react to the moment, because we all live past that moment, and the plan is what saves us. So my point of view is we shouldn't be rushing to solve something on one or two corridors in a city when the impact could be very negative. And unless we really figure out the consequences, we shouldn't do it. Regarding the residential, I have always experienced in the cities that I worked in that when you end up with a vital commercial corridor and then you bring in a lot of residential, you basically are changing the nature of that place. In the case of the Art Deco District, it has such an incredible character that if we were to bring in a lot of residents, they would, because they need to, push out a lot of the other types of businesses and the Instagram moment. Because why would you have an Instagram moment if basically you don't want the cafe atmosphere, you don't want the commercial activities, you don't want people coming from all over the world to go to your beach? Those are the reasons that we have an Instagram moment. So I believe that master planning, when we did it early on, when we created the CRA, this was the murder capital of the world. And the most important thing that could happen is to build a new hotel, which I was very proud to be a part of in the construction of the Lowe's. But we don't need to build a new hotel in the Art Deco District. And there are other places where we could have massive amounts of new housing. And I don't believe we should be doing. So, bottom line, I think we shouldn't rush to solve a problem that will take time. I think we need to do a proper plan. And frankly, with all the work that we did with Jonathan as the chairman on the master plan we just finished, it never really saw the light of day. The commission approved it unanimously, but nothing was ever done. I think we should have conversations because all that work has already been finished. And what better place to start than something that's already been thought through?
Thank you. All right.
And just to follow up on that, on the comment a little bit, to be direct, there was a lot of people in the community that felt that encroaching on Loomis Park to add, for noble reason, which was to expand the cafe space to the center line of the road and to provide for, what else was on the section for?
Anderson Auto Cycle.
Okay. One of the great opportunities of what I do is I get to be an artist occasionally. And the thinking in the master plan that maybe got the wrong reception was an idea that the front face of the Ocean Drive hotels should not be a narrow sidewalk, a roadway, a park, half a park that's not a park because it's unusable, a dune, and then a beach. The thinking was the park should start at the dune and the park should go all the way to the front of the hotel buildings. Now, the problem is there's a big fight going on. Some people live on Ocean Drive and want it to be a residential community. Other people feel like Ocean Drive is the most important street in our county and that the world wants to see it. And nobody's going to come there if it eventually becomes a residential community. it is in fact the engine for what has been driving Miami Beach for years and years. Everybody in the world knows about the Art Deco District. They come from everywhere to see it. So my thinking was, why don't we take the friction out of the problem? If we want the hotel to have a cafe district, let them have 20 feet, 30 feet. Why couldn't the sidewalk be 40 feet wide? And I was thinking, well, if I'm a visitor to the hotel, I still want to be dropped off. If somebody's having a heart attack, I still need a fire engine or an emergency vehicle. So why don't we take a narrow strip, push it out? Because in my mind, the whole thing is the park. It doesn't start at Loomis, it starts at the building. So let me publicly say, if the irritation that is in the way of this idea is simply that I drew a line through Loomis Park, we can accomplish a whole lot by staying within the right way and still expanding the sidewalk and making it a better place. But the point is, in my mind, there should be very little to no traffic on Ocean Drive, but you need to have access. It's just important. People need to be able to come to a hotel and in the spirit of the 1930s, be dropped off in style and come into a restaurant and have somebody take their car away. But it should not be a cruising place. It should be very, very limited. And we need 20 feet clear for a fire truck in case something terrible happens. So I'm only proposing 20 feet, but I'm not proposing that it be opened up. And I'm also not proposing that there should be no cars, because I think that's a burden also. So I think it's a design problem. We solved it in our master plan according to my thinking. If we need to bring the road back in closer to the buildings, if people are somehow offended that we can't deal with it, that's fine. But I want to draw your attention to one last thing. We did a study, and the green area of Loomis Park is 15 acres. But the area between the street and the dune is 30 acres. There's no reason we can't double the size of Loomis Park, create more classy, environmental, beautiful activities. And in my view, when we get to the conversation, what I think we need is Miami Beach has been coasting for too long on its reputation. It's time for a transformative moment. We got to rethink how we present ourselves, and the place that we can do that is in the parks and the infrastructure and the streets. If we make the design change, behavior will change.
Okay, thank you for that summary, and I think your voice lasted well. Better than I expected. So I'm going to go down the table here. So Jonathan, if you could weigh in on this subject of pedestrianization. I know you were recently in Hungary and visiting town squares in Europe and took some lessons from that. Share with us a little bit about that and how you see that being played out on Ocean Drive in some aspects, but in other parts of the district as well.
Sure. Let me begin by saying that I was with my wife at the March of the Living, the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the concentration camps. So I was in Warsaw, which was a city decimated by World War II, and Budapest, which was a city actually quite preserved. But what's so striking about really all the major European capitals is how robust the pedestrian activity is and how much energy it brings to, frankly, the businesses and the life of the community. If I may, I'm going to take this for a second to say, for a very brief moment, the city of New York tried congestion pricing, and for reasons which are not exactly clear to me, the President of the United States intervened to stop congestion pricing in New York City. But it was in existence long enough.
It still exists.
Right. No, he couldn't get rid of it yet.
But the first data that came out studying the impact, anyway, The first data that came out, actually, what did it show? It showed substantial reduction in traffic and substantial increase in pedestrian traffic and people walking around, frankly, buy things, and people cruising, particularly in our neighborhood. We have so many cruisers, as distinct from people who are driving cars and parking. So I certainly have a bias. We've got to strike the right balance. I do want to say a couple of other quick things, if I may. One is, to say the obvious, Loomis Park, Ocean Drive, the Art Deco facades, the dunes, the beach, this is one of the most extraordinary pieces of real estate in the world, period. And I'm sure David, who's got a much better judgment about this stuff than I do, will agree. It's just simply extraordinary. I think it's why a bunch of developers will line up to try to build something somewhere to capture those sightlines. So we need to protect it in appropriate ways, but its extraordinary nature is what I think causes it to be, in some respects, by potential, and in some current reality, the town square of Miami Beach. We are framed by South of Fifth, which of course has had extraordinary development over the years, and by what's happening above 15th Street, so-called Billionaires Row. And without sort of commenting on rich and poor and, detesting those who have money versus that don't, we have an extraordinary sort of 5- and 6-star hotel thing happening north of 15th Street, which I hope will benefit the community in many ways. And to get south of Fifth, again, both of those things, we're the sandwich in between. What should be happening is those people, as well as those who live west of us, should be frequenting Ocean Drive. But I can't tell you how many folks I speak to who's in our community, our neighbors, who said, I haven't been to Ocean Drive in 10 years or more. It's simply extraordinary to me because, frankly, Ocean Drive is quite lovely now to walk in a careful way. Many things have gotten better, but we need to take steps to, on one hand, preserve it and figure out also the way to enhance it. I want to comment on Bernard's comment about the park. I did share this, sort of the citizen committee that engaged with Bernard as he developed his plan. And I gave Bernard a few little pieces of advice. Maybe the most important was to start every presentation he had talking about doubling the size of Loomis Park. Think about having this extraordinary piece of real estate, and only half of it is landscaped. We have a 30-acre park, and only 15 acres of it actually has grass and trees. That's unbelievable to me. Another big piece of the puzzle, and I saw Troy out there earlier, I don't know if he's still here, but the distance emotionally from Washington Avenue to the beach is actually much longer than the actual distance, because frankly our side streets are not very attractive. If you're crossing from west to east on Washington Avenue and begin to move toward the beach, you have to pass some pretty gritty areas. As Bernard's plan illustrated, if you landscaped those side streets in a way that made you feel when you crossed Washington Avenue that you were actually entering Loomis Park, as you got to the east side of Washington Avenue, again properly landscaped, it would feel entirely different. By the kinds of retail that would be there, would be entirely different. Those that would be willing to stay in Washington Avenue or visit Washington Avenue would be, in my view, entirely different. Look, I'm a great admirer of David's, and I know whatever David builds will be beautiful. But we have sort of these conflicting forces at work, not David, but the real estate development community, being empowered by people very distant physically from us, those in Tallahassee. I'm quite struck, by the way, because obviously we have a right-leaning government in Tallahassee, and I thought local control was always what the right believed in.
Yeah, right.
And I'm not making a political statement about right or left as much as I'm troubled by the fact that they're telling us what our community should look like. We as residents, because I'm both a resident and a business owner, do have to keep our eyes open and relax and take a deep breath and say, how can we make progress? How can we have a preservation commitment and still develop this community in ways that are appropriate to develop it? And at the moment, again, stressing that I speak to people all the time. We're lucky to have a business on Ocean Drive, Betsy, that does attract a certain audience, many of them, again, saying I haven't been to Ocean Drive, and frankly, I'm not coming back for a very long time. We've got to figure out a way to clean it up, get it to a place where everyone feels comfortable, and the things happening north and south of it very much will embrace the change if we can find it. I do want to say about the master plan, if I may for a moment. Bernard and team did a great job on it, but I don't think the intent, and you heard Bernard talk about where the street should be and so forth, I don't think the intent is to say accept the plan or not. Bernard put forward a bunch of tremendous ideas, and I think frankly the city, both our electeds, our appointed, and citizens, gave it short shrift. He delivered this plan after extensive work, and the commission said thank you very much and kind of put it on the shelf. I was asked by Mayor Levine to do some work in South Beach, looking at Ocean Drive. First thing I did was go to the planning department and ask for what previous plans had been done. And they came out with a stack like this. The one on the top at that point was Alan Schulman's plan to tabletop Ocean Drive. We actually have to dive in and dirty our hands and figure out what we want to be and which of the things on Bernard's list make sense and which don't. Which elements from Live Local, whatever it turns out to be, make sense, and which don't. But I really, as I'm going to hand the microphone, I think, down to Irene, one thing that I think is missing tremendously is, again, we all have to kind of close our eyes and ask ourselves, what is our vision of this community 5 and 8 and 10 and 15 years from now? And at the moment, we kind of are herky-jerky about all of that. We've got to embrace something that has to occur among our electeds, our appointeds, and all of us, and then we can drive to the finish line in some fashion.
So we've heard 3 people talk about the master plan. I really think if nothing else comes out of this panel, that the commission will take another look at that plan. There was that piece of it that they didn't like that could be adjusted. As Jonathan said, these master plans are living, organic things that get molded to meet the challenges that a community is facing. And to just dismiss it out of hand from somebody with Bernard's track record of amazing transformations. I mean, think about what Lincoln Road was like and 17th Street before Soundscape Park was there. I mean, it's unbelievable the difference. And so these kinds of transformations can only happen if the community is open to a dialogue and not say, oh, I don't like this, I'm not interested in the whole thing. That's why I made him renounce that statement, because I heard it from so many people that they're like, I don't care what's in the master plan, I don't want a road going through Loomis Park. But that really is not the right way to look at the plan. And so I really urge everybody to keep an open mind at it, and maybe we can get that plan looked at again for a lot of good that's in it, and we can start a conversation about how we can start to create a different atmosphere on Ocean Drive that's going to work to the benefit of the entire Art Deco District. Now, Irene, like Jonathan, lives at the north edge of Ocean Drive, and so she has a particular perspective on it, because the character of the northern side of Ocean Drive is a little bit different than the southern side is. So I'm going to let her elaborate on what she's heard so far. You have a mic there. And, share with us what your feelings are, about pedestrianization, about looking at Bernard's master plan, and some of the other things that we've discussed. Thank you.
Great. Can everybody hear me? Thank you so
Yes,
much.
great.
And so, yes, my perspective is as president of the Neighborhood Association. The reason we created the Neighborhood Association was we realized that there are about 1,000 registered voters and a lot of residents that are part-time residents that come down as snowbirds in our community. And what makes our community so special and unique, it is the buildings, the Art Deco buildings, it is the beach, it is the beautiful park, but we also have a nice combination of residents, businesses, and visitors alike. And it's even though we are a neighborhood association representing the voices of the residents, we also want to be able to coexist harmoniously with the businesses. Because we have tens of millions coming to our street, we think about the infrastructure. We have a very fragile infrastructure, so we think of all of those issues. And listening to Bernard, I loved a lot of the vision, the final draft, in particular, the talk about a conservancy for Loomis Park and expansion of the street for the sidewalk cafes, because I'm an expert on the business side of the sidewalk cafes, but I know there's a certain type of formula where you need a certain amount of seats and tables to make it work. So we are very conscious of all of that. But I'm coming into this from a more common sense perspective. When I looked at the vision plan, when I looked at the vision plan, Bernard's vision plan, I thought, money, how much is this going to cost? And I know we have $5 million for Loomis Park and $40 million for GeoBond. And I just want to share just a few thoughts about what I believe, just some basics that could help our community without spending, I don't know, hundreds of millions. I'm not sure what the amount is, but we have a beach, it's a natural resource that's beautiful. It needs to breathe. It can't be a dumping ground for special events. We have an issue with the events that are one after another, and we believe that it's not just the residents that want the beach. There are visitors that come and they look at it as a construction site. So we really want to focus on limiting that. Our park, I personally don't agree with cutting through our park. But what I do believe, and I know Bernard, you mentioned that it should be better utilized. We do have a lot of people enjoying the park. What I would love to see, and Jonathan and I talked about it, is investing in the infrastructure, putting that $5 million or however much it is into underground utilities and irrigation for it, and returfing it, adding more palm trees in it. And again, the conservancy, I thought was a great idea, because I think, we've got limited resources. Let's open it up. Let's have people that are experts, philanthropists, come and invest the money in it. And unless we fully pedestrianize Ocean Drive, and I'm not sure what the outcome of that's going to be, the $40 million in the GeoBond, our streets, they don't necessarily, again, unless we fully pedestrianize, we don't need fancy pavers, but they do need to be redone. They are old, and if they're redone, they need to be maintained. There's so many people that come to our street. We are so iconic, but I have to say, I don't, and people do say we get a lot of attention, but when you come and you walk our streets, you look down and no, it doesn't look like we're getting the attention that we should be getting, especially when we are the economic engine for the state of Florida, really. So we need a lot of TLC. I would take some of that money, and that might completely change the iconic street, put it into the buildings, the facades. People come to see, they come for our Art Deco. And again, back to the events, I don't believe we need more visitors. I will touch briefly on we do need density. I believe that we need some more residential density. It's an ecosystem. We have businesses that can be better supported. I would love a supermarket, or I don't know, a market, close to my home, on 15th Street in the Ocean. And all I keep getting when I talk to people about feasibility tests, we don't have enough residential density. That is the truth. We need more. And I would love to see Washington Avenue have some, I don't know what the magic number is, a few stories with very nice ground retail on the bottom, and it doesn't necessarily have to change the character of where we are. But it will help. Right now I know business owners that say that no one wants to touch Ocean Drive. Now, it might be an hyperbole, I don't know, but I know that it is the truth. They say that who wants to come and rent their building? It is, no offense to hookah cafes, but it's hookah. And no Michelin star. I don't understand what Jonathan said. We have such prime real estate. We are on the beach, Art Deco, beautiful park, and we are not getting the restaurants that are interested, the higher-end resident restaurants coming. So that's a problem. When I talk to people outside, wherever I go, in my capacity as, president of the neighborhood association, I ask them, do you go to South Beach? And there are very good businesses, well run. We've got owners here that I respect how they run their business, and they are Michelin, quality. But a lot of people say they don't like the tourist traps. I'm going to say it again. There are tourist traps. When we brand our image, and I will talk about that, and I promise just another minute. But when we have an image, we want to put out an image to the world, and we want to sell it. Who are we selling it to? We're selling it to smart consumers. So unless we back up what we're selling, people are going to come, and they're going to know that they were gouged, that they didn't get what they expected. So we need to really take an honest look at what we're doing right, and what we're doing wrong, and fix it. And I really think we need to hold businesses accountable. But I also know that there is a problem with the permitting process. So we need to work with these businesses. There's a grease trap issue. I don't know if it's the health department being at the state. Maybe we need more, a health department at the local level to help these businesses. But it's a problem. And I really believe in a private-public partnership that will help, that would incentivize our the renovation, the repurposing. That's another word. It's repurposing, maybe making better use of the space that we have. And lastly, I want to promote heritage tourism. We'll talk more about that when we ask the question. But it's going to be a $780 billion industry by the year 2030. It is a lucrative part of the tourism industry. That will help kill so many birds, with one stone. Bring these people in. They respect your city. They love the history. We can sell it, to heritage tourism. We can be the cultural and culinary hub, cultural and culinary destination. But it's a message, but we need to back up the message. So I appreciate it.
Okay, George, she mentioned heritage tourism. It doesn't roll off the tongue. I know when I met with Melissa to prepare for this meeting, she said that heritage tourism doesn't ring the bell for people, and they're trying to figure out, she's working on a marketing piece for you, and I think they're terrific. And there's funding from the Bureau behind them. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there in that marketing effort. But they're very interested in using the term Art Deco District rather than South Beach, which has connotations to the tourist population and a marketing basis that are very much different and are going to bring a different kind of person there. So, one of the ideas that I had, and then I'm going to call on you, George, we have committees for everything in Miami Beach.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we've ever really had a marketing consultation committee with marketing professionals that can provide feedback to the city commission on things to do. And I know that, I started thinking about this when Bill Rohde ran for mayor a few years ago. Now, he hadn't spent a lot of time in the community, and he didn't get a lot of votes to get elected, but he had a remarkable marketing background in MTV Latino. And I had asked Bill, would you be interested in forming a marketing committee and giving guidance to the commission? He said, well, I'd rather do that as the mayor. Well, he didn't become the mayor, but I never lost the idea of getting marketing professionals together and letting them help guide, the Miami Beach marketing project so that it does what we want it to do. So anyway, for the mayor or whoever's still here, that's just a plug for an idea that maybe one of the candidates running for office who are here, And I do want to recognize Ceci Velasco, who's here today. Ceci's responsible for curating the music which has now become a fixture on Sunday afternoons at 5 o'clock, is it? Huh? 5 o'clock. They have some wonderful groups there. It's the kind of activity that we like, that attracts people. They flow into the Betsy before or after. They generate business for the restaurants and hotels that are there, so thank you for doing what you do. Okay, George, talk a little bit about the historic tours that NBTL does, and what impact you think that has on the community, and whether we can get some kind of multiplier on that by packaging it with hotels and other activities in a bigger package. I don't know if there's tour companies that are already doing that, but share a little bit of your experience with the Bureau and MDPL and talk about this kind of
Well, good
tourism.
evening, everyone. I call what I'm about to say is back to the future. I want to say that we live and breathe many of the things that you've heard on around the table at the Miami Design Preservation League. I mean, not only creating in some ways the preservation movement in Miami Beach through, most importantly, education. I was going to say that the most important thing that happens in Miami Beach every day, every morning, is the Art Deco tour that steps off from the Miami Design Preservation League. Because what we are doing is educating the world about the importance of what we have that we many times take for granted. If you take yourself away from Ocean Drive and from Miami Beach and talk to people, from tourists, they revel in what we have here. They're thrilled at the history, the culture, and what takes place under our noses. So we do the Art Deco tours, as I mentioned, every morning. If you haven't taken one, please educate yourself. One of the things that I did working with Commissioner Gonzalez was suggest that all the members of the three big boards, the Historic Preservation Board, Design Review Board, and Planning Board, they don't get seated until they take a historic Art Deco tour, so they know what we're trying to save. And that is crucial. We hear, people forget that history and historic is in the logo of Miami Beach. It doesn't say modern, it doesn't say contemporary, it says historic. And that's what we have in spades here. It's very, very important to say that. And we prove that, as Saul has suggested, with our historic tours that take place every day. What we started to do, and if there's any hoteliers in the audience, we've tried and started to make the Art Deco Weekend Tour an amenity at your hotel. So you give out chairs, you give out umbrellas, and anybody that wants to take an Art Deco tour, you give them the business card, they walk down to the NPPL, they present the card, and they get a tour, and at the end of the month, we send them the amount of people that took the tour, and they send us a bill. How easy is that? And we've been working with the Marriott to get it finalized. So I want to suggest to anybody here, that's another way to educate locals, tourists, about the importance of what we have right here. You heard Saul mention one of the big things. Today we hosted at the Preservation League a gathering of about 25 people, because we have so many things adding to the luster of Miami Beach that's going to be taking place over the next few months, the most important of which is the city is sponsoring the centennial celebration of Art Deco on Ocean Drive at what we call the Galleria, which is now another section of, you've seen it perhaps where the displays are. And so that's going to have some amazing displays of international Art Deco, as well as the largest concentration of Art Deco buildings in the world, which happen to be located just down the street. So we're going to be doing that with the city. We're going to be bringing people in. We're going to make history and culture the center of why people should come here, why they should participate, how they can get involved. We're going to match that up in the museum, so we're going to be able to have displays and other kinds of things, so we can really showcase how Art Deco got started and how it is today. So we're going to be working on that. We also going to be working on a film, a documentary about Barbara Kaplan that's going to come out, and that's going to be shown in Netflix and other places around the country. We're working on a film on Morris Lapidus, another documentary. We've had so many influential people here, and we want the world to know about them. We're also going to celebrate with this gentleman named Derek the 41st anniversary of Miami Vice. We're going to bring in people, and we're going to talk about the buildings and the culture and the painting and the color, so that people can come and see the relationship. It didn't just happen with cameras. It happened with historic Art Deco buildings. That's where it happened, and they acted in the buildings, but the buildings were the backdrop for everything that took place. So we just have so many wonderful things. We have a Rainbow Spring that's going to be taking place at the beginning of June, and we're going to celebrate Gay Pride on Ocean Drive with Michael Rossi, mapping out the buildings with music and live dancers. And so there's just so many things that you can do, highlighting something that is under our noses, the historic, Art Deco District. And we're going to be using that, we're going to grow that. If you haven't taken a tour, we have one every day at 10:30. Educate yourself, come back to Ocean Drive, see how wonderful it is, see how all the work that these people have done. And you'll be amazed at what is here that sometimes we take advantage of, we don't think about. And it's a pleasure to work in this community with so many wonderful people. Together we're going to make Ocean Drive shine. Thank you.
Now you know why he's an MC of choice in a lot of these events. Okay, Jonathan, I see you were taking notes. You're a copious note taker. So, tell us what you're writing down.
Well, first, with great respect to my friend here, it's only $20 million of GO bond money that's available for Ocean Drive. 20 million. 20, not 40. That's all right. That's all right. I still don't know how to spend 40 because it's only 20. And it's 5 for Loomis Park, and I want to emphasize in Loomis Park, we have lights that don't work, we have irrigation that doesn't water, and we have a park that should be expanded to 15 acres. So, and I think one of the commissioners, and I apologize, I think it may have been Commissioner Green, but I'm not certain, we actually put forward those 3, saying let's focus on those for the park, because they're doable things as compared to some of these complex issues, irrigation, lighting, and park expansion. Secondly, just because I have to do a concert in the park on Sunday, if you haven't been there, we've done 150 of them.
They're great.
And it's different music every Sunday. And by the way, it's about to change from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock.
In June and 6.
Yes, right, so be careful, but you can go to Ocean Drive Arts on the GMCB website and find it. But the part I like the best about the concerts, yes, I love the people who come every week, but the people I enjoy the most are those walking by who've come to Ocean Drive and are imagining something different, and they stumble on, and it could be anything, by the way, because the music is very diverse, and all of a sudden you've got 50 people on the sidewalk really experiencing Ocean Drive they didn't expect because we haven't done our marketing and brand work effectively. They're surprised by it, rather than expecting it, and it's really hugely important. By the way, George, we, not in a competitive way, we have an Art Deco tour that emanates from our lobby every morning as well. I'm sharing that with you only because I think, in addition to MDPL, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of more visitors who are taking Art Deco tours, just emphasizing the importance of that. Education and messaging is crucially important. I do want to share with you, it's important, with my friend Ken Capel and Ivan Salem, who's not here. We brought the Dean of the Yale School of Architecture to Miami Beach a couple of months ago, Deborah Burke. She's a practicing architect, and she's Dean of the Yale School of Architecture, so she has academic stature. She never spent time in Miami Beach. And she came for 4 days just to sort of immerse herself in it with our invitation, really because we wanted to do what's happening here today with people who are here, like Bernard, stimulate a conversation about what is possible. Dean Burke actually very focused on adaptive reuse, not so much about really tall buildings necessarily. Her focus was how do you take existing buildings, preserve them, but recognize they're not working in many cases. Those hotels in Ocean Drive don't work. They don't have a back of the house. We've got to find a way yes, to preserve them, but also make them economically viable. If we don't do that, we're simply toast. Last thing, I want to encourage you who don't, those of you who don't do it. And I saw my friend Ian Henry, who runs Finnegan's on Ocean Drive, and David was here earlier, David Wallach, of course, Mango's, Orlando, the Cavalier, and his lovely wife, who actually makes it happen. Go sit in front of one of these cafes and sit on Loomis Park. It is really one of the most extraordinary experiences in the world. And that's actually, people can look behind them, look at the buildings, and be thrilled by it, and then look toward the beach and say, this is actually heaven. And because of that, the potential is so enormous. I want to embrace one last thing and I'll come back. It is tragic, and we're very proud of our restaurant, and again, Atlanta's Family is a great restaurant, Tom Glassy at the Avalon, it could go on. But we really need a couple of other great restaurants to actually begin to believe that Ocean Drive is a place where they can plant themselves and succeed. But at the moment, they don't think the customers that they want are coming. We need to change the brand story in order to make that happen.
Okay, Bernard, there's been people commenting about your master plan long. Do you have any follow-ups left in your voice capacity at this point?
Absolutely.
All right.
You know, I think, excuse me, let me get some more water. There's a lot of cities in the world that have waterfront hotels. And there are not many cities that have a historic district. And when I was first commissioned to do the master plan, excuse me, it was only going to be for Washington Avenue. And I told the city I didn't want to do it. And it took 1.5 years for the city to finally agree that we could do the plan for Washington, Collins, and Ocean. And I want everybody in the room to understand that not only do we have historic buildings, but to my knowledge, there are very few places in the world that have 3 incredible streets all working with each other. And unfortunately, whenever we start to have a conversation, everybody buries their hand into their one issue. Okay, we have a road and a park. Okay, we have a problem with this or a problem with that. My belief is we have one opportunity to save this district. Personally, I feel more threatened now than when Barbara Capitman was out there. Because we have many things working against us. One is the physical fabric itself. As Jonathan and Irene have said, why don't we have more Michelin restaurants? Well, the reason is, in my opinion, that perfect is the enemy of good. Think about that. We have such a strong desire to preserve that the buildings are actually somewhat obsolete. The hotels don't really work. There's not enough place to have a great restaurant kitchen. How do you do that? We have to make some compromises. The other thing is we have way too much traffic and congestion. So the way to deal with that is not to make it easier. We have to make it harder to get here with a car. And the place that we should stop at is on Washington and 5th. And a part of the plan is, let's take all the side streets and take half of the street and make it landscape. People can walk from the Flamingo District, they can walk from Washington, they can go all the way to the park and have one-way streets on the side streets. Now people will scream about that, because what are we gonna do? We don't have enough room for the car. Well, when you look at the data around the world, when you don't have enough room for the car The cars come coming, they stop, they take Uber, they come in some other way, because now there's really a reason to come there. Now it's been transformed. So my point of view is, notwithstanding all of the immediate hardship, which I totally get, $5 million, believe me, is nothing. People with money spend $5 million on their interior design. $20 million is a little bit of money, but not enough. So what happens? Do you stop dreaming and not think about the future because you're worried today about the GO bond? That's ridiculous. Look at Miami Beach 30 years ago, when it was totally derelict. I mean, the St. Moritz was empty. Buildings were completely destroyed. And the CRA came in, the hotel got built, the streets got moved, buildings got moved. Things can change. Why do we forget? We made it happen, all of us. There's no reason to think we can't have a future that's better only because we only have 5 million to 20 million. That's BS. This is an amazing city. If people get behind it and they believe in it, it'll happen.
All right, Bernard.
Right on, right on, right on. So the hour is about 7:45. Are we at everybody's limit, or are you interested in hearing more? We have to get out. We have to leave the room. Questions? All right. Let's take a question or two from the audience.
Let's get the microphone so you can be heard.
Let Valerie run that, she's good at
I can ask them without the microphone.
No, it's because of the video. You're making this video. Before anything else, I would like to recognize our state representative, Fabian Wasabi is here. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Okay. First question, can we line up over here for the questions then? How many questions are we going to take? 2 questions.
Hi, Brian Ehrlich. Thank you guys, this has been incredible. I think one of the things that struck me in listening to all the experts that we have up here and all of their knowledge is really that maybe the failure that we have is actually in harnessing all of the expertise that we actually have inside of this room. And maybe the question is more about political will, about creating a resident-centric vision. We have a billion visions. I love everything that Bernard said. But hold on a second. I love everything that Bernard said. I think that the whole idea of creating something like Paris, like Barcelona, like you can imagine the cities in Rio, like where there's tree-lined streets, that's incredible. But I guess the question that I have today is, why are we not leading a city effort, a public-private partnership that is articulating and executing this vision that we have here? Because we can have 1 million master plans, we can have all the plans that we ever want, but cities happen because people actually take action. So that's my question to us.
Okay.
Wait,
there's a question.
Yeah, let me just make a remark to Brian's question. You know, the reality is that the community gets together when the commission empowers them to be together. I know you're running for a commission. And I think that when there are difficult choices to be made and members of the community are at odds with each other, as the issue on Ocean Drive with some of the legacy businesses like David's that feels like he might get hurt by what happens if the street is partially closed. He's used to running his business a certain way. These things don't get solved unless everybody sits down in a room together where they all have the best interest of the city at heart and bang heads together in a nice way and get something done. And, you know, I really think that it's up to the commission to make this a focus and not say, you know what, this problem is intractable, and because we can't solve it, we're gonna do nothing. That's really not an option based on where we are in the market and how far we need to go from where we are today to get to the next level. So I really hope that the commission is listening and that they continue to put effort into solving these problems and getting the people in the community on the same page. Lynn, did you have a?
More questions? Okay, I guess I have to come up with a question. First of all, I want to recognize, first of all, I'm old. And having been, you know, like around.
Lynn, hold the mic closer to you.
Okay, having been around since the 70s and been part of the effort to create the National Register Historic District, the Art Deco District with Barbara Kappelman and everybody else who has been wonderful, and we have had so many successes, you know, and we should be so proud of what this community. Okay, wait. Okay, Betsy and I are an act. We've been going together like for a long time, but. What I want to say is that with Dennis Ross, Miami Beach Development Corporation, Miami Design Preservation Week, before that, there was a visioning process, and it was a community process. And so, you know, here we are, and for 40 years, we have been like bathing in this fabulousness worldwide with what we have accomplished. So perhaps I would like to offer, I don't know how to make this into a question, so is that we need to again go through a visioning process. Who are we? Where do we want to go? We have made such incredible strides over the years. And now, who do we want to be? You know, do we want to be a better community? Do we want to be a tourist attraction? Do we want to be a community that sets the standards for accomplishing sea level rise solutions? Who do we want to be? And now I'm turning this over to Maddie.
I just want to say, no, that she is correct. The problem that we're having is that at the time that she was speaking, everybody had the same vision. Everybody had one vision. It was the vision to save the Art Deco District. Now, there's too many visions and not anything cohesive. So Bernard does a plan and it's put on the shelf because we get to see it when it's shown to the commission. Maybe he did some group things, but I don't know because nobody asked him to go anyplace, and I'm sure they didn't ask a lot of people here. So before the plan is done, the group of people that have vision have to have input on what that vision is going to be. Because if we don't bite on the vision, the problem starts. We're going to come and say, I don't want that street closed, or I don't want the palm here. So it has to be inclusive of everybody. I want to say that, because I forget everybody's name, Irene, and I was listening to somebody whisper, that's minutia. No. The fact that you walk down the street in the Art Deco District, and I live at the dead end of Espanola Way, I'm in the middle of it, okay? I have to tell you that 15th Street maybe was resurfaced once in the 45 years that I lived, okay? That I drive down 15th Street and my car goes up and down constantly. And in any street in the Art Deco District, you have that. So it's not minutia, it's reality. When people are looking at our district, they see streets ugly, they see sidewalks that are broken, they see code not being enforced, because who knows what. So we have to come up. I'm sorry.
Okay, Maddie. So
we have to come up, and I'm not a candidate.
Yeah.
So we have to come up with our thing. So,
I said, Maddie, I sat next to Maddie for many years on the dais, and one of the jobs I had was to tell Maddie that she's always right, but sometimes speaks for too long. So some things never change.
Yeah, I would not want to run against that woman, but Mayor Bauer actually made a great point I wanted to emphasize. I often refer to myself as a low-hanging fruit guy. The low-hanging fruit is critically important. I do want to just correct her gently about one thing, because I chaired the citizen thing that participated with Bernard. We had 22 public meetings, Sunshine Law, public meetings that were online. We had tons of citizens show up. That doesn't mean we got to the right answer, but it was not behind closed doors. That's all I can say.
Thank you.
So, we only have 2 more people, okay?
Do they have
Okay, yeah, real questions though. Yeah.
Okay, directly question.
But
Please come on here.
I think the idea of a visioning session for the community is really an excellent idea. I really do. And the last plan that went through a visioning section in our city, if I remember correctly, was 71st Street. Now, I didn't necessarily agree with the outcome, but it was a good process. It was professionally run. The community was involved, and something got done. And if that's what it takes, maybe that should be the next step. Tell me your name. Now tell me you're not running for office.
No, definitely not running for office. My name is Martin Moeller. I'm a year-round resident of South Beach. I have 15 seconds of context before my question. A few days ago, a friend of mine who is a developer said, in the wake of the actions legislatively at the local and state levels, well, and this is a quote, now we know Miami Beach zoning is for sale to the highest bidder. So what I want to know is, what do we do right now as citizens who, with all due respect, Mr. Martin, think that 5 Park was a mistake? We think that 1250 West Avenue was a mistake? And we think that the expansion of the Live Local Act is a catastrophe for our city. What do we do right now to thwart this destruction of Miami Beach?
Well, I will say that
Here's a real question.
the Miami Beach commissioners spoke in one mind and tried their hardest to get Live Local watered down. What they got were crumbs at the end, but at least they got those crumbs, and that was the best that they probably could do in a Republican state with the governor and the legislature. That is what it is. You know, we live in a different world than they live in, and that's just the reality. Okay,
Last question, okay, come on here.
last question.
Sunset Harbor.
Bruce, you've been here long enough to have the last question, but how many visiting sessions did Sunset Harbor have?
We did pass
Put this close to you now.
we did have a vision plan for that. My question is really to Jonathan and also to Bernard. An issue we have in our neighborhood is seasonality. So I don't know how you get your hotel to flourish in the summer. And that is one reason why I think Irene has a point in trying to bring residents, because restaurants and other businesses suffer greatly. So how do your plans encourage less seasonality and allow your businesses to flourish?
Well, I would say, one of the misconceptions is about occupancy during the summer. Our occupancy is quite high, just at a lower rate. The number of Europeans, international travelers who want to be here, a little bit of a challenge at the moment, although not terrible, a challenge at the moment given some of the dynamics of Washington versus the world. But fortunately, the Canadians come during the wintertime, not during the summertime. But the Europeans love the long summer nights, and so there are tons of people here. Now, having said that, we have a lot of work to do. It's terrible that Ocean Drive does not attract residents from either west of Ocean Drive on Miami Beach or, frankly, from across the water. It's a big deal. The only solution, frankly, is to work on our brand to create a more inviting environment where people want to come. I look out my window, I have the good fortune of looking south on Loomis Park and looking at the beach on the evenings of the summer. It's one of the most extraordinary environments in the world, but frankly, it's filled with tourists mostly and residents really nearby, not people from the region. And that's our problem at the moment. People in the region are going elsewhere. We need to find a way to get them here. And I am in the camp which says further residential development done carefully, right size, right location, right this, right that, all that stuff is something that we need to be exploring. How to strike the right balance, that's the big challenge we've got to pursue.
Thank you everybody for coming.